Russian air raids continue to bombard Ukrainian cities, but Kyiv's counter-offensive pace creeps up on the front line. In a bid to rally more support in the context of the Ukraine war, President Putin invites African leaders to St. Petersburg. Russian air attacks have reportedly continued across Ukraine after days of intense strikes on cities including Odessa. The Ukrainian Air Force says it shot down 36 cruise missiles fired by Russia. It's not clear if any others hit their intended targets. Elsewhere in Ukraine, firefighters came under artillery fire as they tackled wildfires in Toretsk in the Donetsk region. It's not known if any of the fire crew were injured. From the war-torn city of Bakhmut, fighting on the ground is also said to be intensifying in some areas. Body cam footage from Ukrainian soldiers caught the ferocity of a battle in Luhansk. But there were also reports of gains by Ukrainian forces near Bakhmut and a renewed push by Ukrainian forces around Zaporizhia. The pace of Ukraine's counter-offensive is building slowly, with more Western weapons arriving on a daily basis. But with Russian positions well defended, advances so far have been more incremental than spectacular. African leaders have been arriving in St. Petersburg ahead of a summit that Moscow hopes will boost its influence in the continent and win it more support in the context of the Ukraine war. But on the eve of the event, the number of attending heads of state had shrunk from 43 to 17, a drop that the Kremlin blamed on Western interference. The two-day conference comes in the wake of Russia pulling out of the Black Sea grain deal. President Vladimir Putin sought to reassure the leaders, including Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, whom he met separately, that Russia could send enough grain to compensate Africa for the loss of Ukrainian shipments. The fate of future contracts with the Wagner mercenary group is also likely to be discussed. The leaders of countries like Mali and Sudan rely on its military support, and after June's failed uprising, uncertainty remains over what role the private army will play in Africa.
Journalists waiting outside the Moscow city court. Ilya Sachkov, founder of a major cybersecurity company, was convicted of treason here on Wednesday and sentenced to 14 years in a high-security penal colony. The case against him was held behind closed doors, but it's believed it was centred on allegations he passed classified information to foreign spies. The 37-year-old, who's been detained since September 2021, has denied the charges. At the time of his arrest, his company was focusing on investigating high-tech crimes and online fraud in Russia and elsewhere.
An apocalyptic landscape rises over Rhodes, one of the Greek islands that has been fighting roaring wildfires day and night. Columns of smoke rise over the coastal town of Kiotari, practically empty after the evacuation of thousands of tourists. On Monday, the fire claimed 3 lives, 2 of them pilots fighting the flames. Strong winds and high temperatures form a dangerous cocktail that threatens the whole of southern Europe. In Croatia, a gigantic fire has broken out near the tourist town of Dubrovnik. The outbreak is more than 5 kilometers long, and more than 130 firefighters are battling the blaze. Fires also mark the news in Sicily. A large forest fire is approaching Palermo, whose airport remained closed this morning after flames reached its perimeter. At least 120 families have been evacuated, and in one town, part of the local landfill is burning. In Portugal, the main setting for the fight against the fire is Sintra Cascais Natural Park west of Lisbon. The flames caught on quickly yesterday afternoon and forced the evacuation of dozens of people. More than 500 firefighters were still on the ground this Wednesday to prevent the flames from returning. In Spain, attention is focused on the flames that broke out on Tuesday in Gran Canaria and forced evacuations of dozens of people. As of Wednesday morning, rescue workers say the situation does appear to be under control. Sinead O'Connor, the gifted Irish singer-songwriter who became a superstar in her mid-20s, has died at the age of 56. A cover of Prince's ballad Nothing Compares to You was the song that changed her life. A seething, shattering performance that topped the charts from Europe to Australia and was heightened by a promotional video featuring the grey-eyed O'Connor in intense close-up. Her career was known as much for her mental health struggles and provocative actions as for her fierce and expressive music. Actor Kevin Spacey has been acquitted by a jury of sexually assaulting 3 men in separate incidents during his time as a director of one of London's top theatres. Spacey said the encounters were all consensual. He claimed a 4th incident in which he grabbed a man's crotch was a misunderstanding. The Oscar winner said he viewed the trial in London as a chance to clear his name after multiple false accusations that had halted his career. Last year, a New York jury cleared Spacey of sexual misconduct charges dating back 3 decades, brought by American actor Anthony Rapp.
It wasn't just immigration, but also a lack of affordable housing that caused Mark Rutte's Dutch government to collapse earlier this month. A strong increase in asylum requests during 2022 led to the opening of some emergency reception centres across the country. This one in the town of Almere, managed by the Dutch Red Cross in a former firehouse, hosts 150 people, mostly young men.
There were no beds, so people were staying outside, and then the Red Cross stepped in, and since then we have become basically an integral part of the structure of refugee shelter.
Here people get 3 meals per day and weekly spending money of just €12. Some of them have been waiting for more than a year for their asylum request to be assessed. They can go out during the day and work for a maximum of 12 weeks per year. But many spend their days in the centre's recreation room. Syrians are the most common among asylum seekers here and at a national level, like Yara, who fled the civil war in her home country.
My husband and my 2 kids are in Syria, and I didn't see them since 9 months, which is so difficult for me. And until now, I have to count another year in order to see them. I hope not to be more than 1 year.
Whoever is eventually granted refugee status is entitled by law to have private accommodation and reunification with their family. But the shortage of housing is leaving people on the waiting list and ensuring that overcrowding at reception centres persists.
Quando non c'è spazio sulla terra, lo si cerca in mare. La nave alle mie spalle, che in passato veniva usata per crociere di lusso, ospita oggi centinaia di persone che attendono risposta alla loro domanda di asilo.
Indeed, the Dutch government tried to introduce different protection statuses in order to avoid granting every refugee the right to immediate family reunification. This is what split parties within the coalition.
There's a housing crisis. There's simply not enough affordable houses in this country, especially in the larger cities, but basically everywhere. And this means that also there's a big competition between people who are eligible for social housing, Dutch natives, so to speak, are eligible for social housing. There's competition between those needs and those of recognized refugees.
According to Professor Dumanik, this type of perfect storm, also caused by inflation and environmental issues, is preventing new houses from being built. And it's also what created the tensions under which the government fell at the beginning of July. And it's likely to influence the next elections in late November.
A specialized type of drone capable of carrying passengers is being tried out in the European Union for the first time. The EH-216 simulated the delivery of medical equipment over a distance of 1 kilometer. Drones like this could be vital when the person has a life-threatening emergency in remote areas. They could carry an EpiPen or a first aid kit, saving lives in the near future. This one can even carry medical personnel to disasters. This is Rzeszów, one of the greenest cities in Poland, thanks to a recent push to create more green spaces. They provided a welcome addition during a recent heatwave that pushed temperatures up to 35 degrees Celsius, a steep jump from Poland's July average of 25 degrees.
W naszym mieście znajduje się wiele takich miejsc zielonych, zagospodarowanych drzewami, gdzie w takie upalne dni możemy się schronić, no powiedzmy, w każdej chwili.
Trees work as natural air conditioners for cities. They create a microclimate that brings temperatures down. Tagging along with a local activist, we tested the difference between temperatures under a tree and in the sun.
43 już. My sadzimy drzewa, miasto sadzi ich jeszcze więcej. Miasto zaczęło dbać o stare drzewa. Polityka miasta bardzo się zmieniła na pozytywną. Darmowe klimatyzatory.
Left in direct sun, thermometers can reach up to 70 degrees Celsius. But under a tree, that reading is a lot lower.
To na ławce obok może być 70? 26 stopni. No to różnicy prawie 20.
Covering the city with as much greenery as possible is the result of a joint project between the city's government and its residents.
Zaprosiliśmy mieszkańców do wskazywania, gdzie oni widzieliby te nowe drzewa. To jest ważne, ponieważ mieszkańcy wiedzą najlepiej, gdzie potrzeba im cienia, gdzie potrzeba im tego zielonego koloru. Warto po prostu inwestować w zieleń, żeby życie było przyjaźniejsze, żeby po prostu mieszkańcy czuli komfort i zadowolenie. W tym roku kolejne 1000 drzew, ponad 1000 drzew przybędzie w Rzeszowie.
Maintaining and planting trees is one of the forms of mitigating the effects of global warming and heat waves that Europe is facing. Although trees can also fall victim to climate change and resulting events, such as wildfires. Magdalena Hodownik for Euronews from Rzeszów.